Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. The mindset that we bring to any situation plays a key part in overcoming challenges and really enjoying our unique paths in life. On Thoughtful Thursdays, I like to explore emotional topics that are relevant to CRNAs and other providers. I think of this as my therapy, and I hope you learn some tips and tricks that you can use along your own journey. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today, and now on with the show. Welcome to Thoughtful Thursdays on the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones. As always, I like to start these shows off with a quote that gets me thinking. Robert Holden once said, "Beware of destination addiction, a preoccupation with the idea that happiness is in the next place, the next job, or with the next partner. Until you give up the idea that happiness is somewhere else, it will never be where you are." As CRNAs, we tend to be incredibly driven individuals. Healthcare education in particular feeds into this drive with long hours of study, long clinical hours, and challenging days on a whole. As the saying goes, though, the days are long, but the years are short. And that time ends up passing pretty quickly in the end. When times got tough, I found myself just putting my head down and grinding it out. I would tell myself that things would be better after school was over. I focused so much on what my life would look like later on down the road that I paid little to no attention to my own marriage and family in the process. I didn't realize how much my wife was struggling with her own issues of being in school and being a new parent. Yes, we overlapped our graduate education in addition to having our first child at the same time. To paraphrase Varsity Blues, we're the dumbest smart kids we know. But in short, I assumed that things would be better just because we arrived at particular checkpoints. If we could hit this milestone or get this amount of money or work out this much, then we'd be happy. And as it turns out, there's a name for that: destination addiction. Come to find out, this addiction often starts much earlier in life than we realize. To quote Dr. Latoya Gaines, a psychologist in New York, "As children, we are conditioned to think about our future. How often are we asked as kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or we're told, get good grades so you can get into a good college and find a good job." As a result, Gaines says, our minds shift towards this future orientation in which everything we do is in service of a future goal. Imagine if, as children, we were encouraged to just enjoy learning, or we were taught to reflect on what made us happy during the day. The problem with placing our happiness in the future is that it starts an endless cycle. Once we reach a destination, we then have trouble appreciating it because we're already looking toward the next goal, the next place. We strive for happiness without letting ourselves actually attain it. I remember feeling excited about graduation, but ultimately let down by the experience. I still had to pass boards at that time, which I ended up doing a few weeks later, and that only led to a feeling of relief that I didn't blow it. Not elation, not deep satisfaction, just surface level vibes that didn't end up lasting. That's not to say that having hope for a better tomorrow is a bad thing, though. In fact, it's a great thing to have hope, and without it, we also tend to fall apart. But it's important to strike a balance between looking ahead and being at peace with your life right now, as it is in these circumstances. That level of balance is something I still struggle with, but there's one word that can help break this cycle: purpose. You see, destination addiction focuses purely on finishes and not on purpose. To live with purpose means creating a vision for your life, work, and relationships that doesn't get lost in the hurry of the day. You identify the things that you really want and create a lifestyle that promotes your pursuit of those things. When you can free your mind from what comes next, you can find happiness in the now. Begin with purpose in mind, and your vision will guide you to greater inspiration, creativity, and meaningful success. So, what does that look like in practice? This can include, number one, taking happy notes, such as tracking one thing you identify as a reason to be happy every day for a month, and then reviewing that list over time. You can have fun with this too. My wife has turned this type of thing into craft projects with sticky leaves that go on the windows in the fall that list the things we're thankful for. Get it? Thank fall. You could do this any time of year, though. Think, why are we lucky clovers in March and things like that. So, number two, being honest with yourself about realistic, achievable goals that you want. It's important that these goals are not because of someone else or the idea that life will simply be better later on. They need to be more concrete than that. Number three, try your best not to compare your journey to anyone else's. Social media makes that hard, I know. But this can either overfeed your ego or feelings of inadequacy, neither of which are going to end up being beneficial for you. Number four, use the time between being where you currently are to prepare for the destination of where you desire to be. This basically equates to living with intentionality. And number five, sports fans are pretty familiar with the phrase falling in love with the process. My dad tried in his own way to get me to embrace this when playing baseball, but it wasn't until later in adulthood that I learned the true value of that lesson. If you can embrace the understanding that the journey is a process, you can begin to reframe your thoughts to healthier ways of thinking that require daily action to achieve results. By falling in love with the process, you'll appreciate the results when they come, as well as enjoying the journey along the way. I've included a link to a conversation about destination addiction in the show notes. And you can also read Robert Holden's book titled Authentic Success for more information about destination addiction. As always, I'd like to thank you for listening to the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you found value today, make sure you hit subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, comment, or topic that you'd like me to cover in an upcoming podcast, make sure you rate and review on your podcast player. I check those all the time and cover those questions in future episodes. I hope you'll join me next time. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.